I know.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't y'all do it.
No, I won't do that.
Welcome back to another episode of Empire State Sports Show, episode 9. Third straight episode, we got this going on.
I'm gonna keep my word.
Thank you. You're a man of honor right here. That's a man of honor. I am your host, Stacey Carter II, joined by Tommy Rooney, Teddy Caputo.
Yes,
what's up, fellas? How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Yourself?
Yeah, I would be better if our audience wasn't leaving. I told I'm putting y'all in the episode. Yeah. Right here.
It is Friday.
Yeah, right here.
They want to go home. I don't blame
okay. All right.
Well, you got another audience up there.
Yeah.
So wave to them.
All right. I guess I'll see y'all later. But
Have a good weekend, guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Well, we have an exciting episode. We're going to start off with the Subway Series, the Subway teams, the Yankees and the Mets. Now, both teams are coming into the season with high expectations. We already know Yankees was in the World Series last year. The Mets, they got Juan Soto. So let's just break it down. Which team has the most pressure to win this season in 2025, Tom?
I'm going to go the Mets because the Yankees lost Juan Soto. They were in the World Series last year, like you mentioned. I think that they are definitely going to be have a lot of pressure as well. But I think the Mets, because of that signing, they're going all in. And I feel like this team this year is really the best shot they've had in a long time to win the World Series. So I think because of that, they kind of put that target on their back as like, we're going all in to do it this year, finally. I think the Yankees, though, like I mentioned, are going to have a lot of pressure as well.
Yeah.
And it just kind of shows how big the big markets in baseball kind of are just going to be in the World Series conversation every year. But the Mets definitely this year are a much better Mets squad than we've seen in a minute. So I think that slightly more on the Mets.
I'm going to go opposite field on you.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with the Yankees. Reason being, first of all, like we already know, they was in the World Series last year. And then there's two guys that have a ton of pressure on them this season that's on the Yankees. The manager, Aaron Boone, and Aaron Judge to perform in the postseason. Aaron Boone, after they lost the World Series, people were like, maybe we should get rid of this guy.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy. But, you know, when you're the Yankees and you have 27 World Series championships,
different standard,
it's a whole different standard. It's a whole different ball game. Then Aaron Judge didn't have a great postseason, hitting wise in the entire picture.
Yeah.
And then they still have, by name, some good players on this team. And you have two pitchers who right now going to the season healthy. Both of them were aces at different points of their career for most of their career.
Getting to grow the hair back.
Yeah, and he gets his facial, Garrett Cole and Max Fried. So when you have all that going on, it's a big deal. And then also the AL, I feel like is a bit of an easier path for the Yankees than versus the NL with the Mets. In the AL, the only team that I can see kind of standing in the way of the Yankees is the Guardians, because there was the AL championship last year.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, maybe the Orioles, because I think they're going to be a good team. But they have lost a lot of pitching in the offseason, especially Corbin Burns. So I say the Yankees. So break the tie. Who do you think has the most pressure on them?
You know, it's funny because I really think that these teams are pretty dead even on pressure. But if I have to break the tie, I think the weight falls a little bit more to the Mets just because they did get Soto. I have to agree with you, Tommy. The Yankees not having Soto maybe takes a little bit of pressure off of them. But again,
they have the MVP.
But that's what I'm saying.
MVP.
That's what I'm saying. It's the New York Yankees. Like, they have all the money to spend on anybody to really bolster this lineup. The Mets went all in on Soto. So I think that's part of the reason why they have a little bit more pressure, is because they're all in. They want to win. They have him locked in for a very long contract, but this was a way to allure Pete Alonso to come back. So I think that they really do have a lot of pressure on them. You know, I think the hype is there. It's like, wow, like the city brought back their man, their hype man, the cheerleader Pete. And like this guy's the limit for them. They do have a harder road. I mean, the Dodgers have Shohei in full form this year, as we've discussed before. But the Yankees, like they need to fill up some more spots on their roster, more in like the relief pitching. They do have some good starting pitching. But Aaron Boone, he's got a lot of pressure on him this year. He could be on the hot seat because
Mm-hmm.
they went to the World Series last year. That's no reason to fire a coach for losing the World Series, especially against one of like a very good Dodgers team. But there's such a different culture there. They they have all this money to spend. They do have the likes of Aaron Judge and Stanton. They did just add Bellinger and Goldschmidt, who are, maybe not in the trajectory upward in their careers. Maybe being in the pinstripes will help them. But I do think the Mets have a little bit more pressure, but the Yankees are always going to have pressure to win each and every single year.
I would say this for the Mets. I think people, when it comes to projections this year, maybe expect them to still lose to the Dodgers because
Yeah.
the Dodgers there's nothing more need to be said about them. And then also the Philadelphia Phillies are pretty tough, but more so going with the Dodgers. I think people wouldn't be upset, well, except for the Mets organization, would be upset if they bow out to the Dodgers again, just because the Dodgers are so loaded.
I think like another way to look at this also is it's not just pressure externally from fans and whatever media. There's pressure on the other guys on the Mets because Juan Soto chose them over the Yankees. You know what I mean? So it's like, and the difference, like we talked about this however many weeks ago, was like $5 million. Like it was like 700 versus 705 or whatever it ended up being. And so if you're a Juan Soto, you're like, I could have been on the Yankees. I could have been back in the World Series, like pretty much guaranteed. But I chose to come to the Mets and chose to like try to win here. So I feel like the pressure is also on the other guys in that locker room, like Pete Alonso, to try to finally get over that hump. So I think that that's something to like keep in mind as well, that the other guys know that like, all right, this is the best shot we've had. We just gave this guy the biggest contract in sports history. We got to perform.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
And Juan Soto has that ring already, and the expectations for him are super high. I mean, first at bat as a Met, he hits a home run in spring training. So he's already bringing his game at the A level. And so those guys do need to step up. I agree with you, Tommy. But the Yankees being in the World Series last year, though they did lose Soto, like there's going to be a lot of pressure on them. Again, I agree. The Mets are going to have more. But Yankees, if they don't get back to the World Series, heck, if they don't get back to the ALCS, like Boone is on the hot seat. There's a lot of pressure on him. And like you said, Judge, to perform. So the pressure's on. The pressure's on for the Yankees.
Would y'all say right now, both the Yankees and Mets, are y'all giving them a guaranteed shoe-in to take their respective divisions this year?
No, not a shoe-in.
Not a shoe-in?
Because you never know what could happen injury-wise.
Yeah,
I know we only seen it in spring training. Like you said, he hit a home run first at bat, but maybe it doesn't work out chemistry-wise, cohesiveness-wise. You never know what could happen. Maybe pitchers aren't as good as they're expected to be. Baseball is weird. It's a long season. You got to kind of wait for it to develop a little bit. But on paper, yes, they should.
I would say on paper, yes, for both teams. Yeah. But I would say, like I was saying about the Yankees, the easier path, they have the easier division out of the two.
Yeah.
Well, except for the Miami Marlins. I don't know what the hell going on there. But yeah, I think they're pretty much almost a lock to take their divisions. What about you?
I have to agree with you, Tommy, wholeheartedly. The season is so long. A lot of things can happen. And, there are teams that they start the season with no real hopes, and then they make a huge run, and then they end up having a postseason opportunity, like the Tigers last year. The Tigers, nobody really thought at the beginning of the year they were going to have any success, and then they really did have some success later in the season, and they won the wild card game to continue their stretch. So there are teams like that could just pop up out of nowhere. And like you said, the Orioles may be on the come up in the AL as well. So I would say that on paper, shoe-in, but I agree with you, Tommy. Like I wouldn't doubt that any of these teams could come up. And again, injuries too. Giancarlo Stanton has not proven to be healthy in the last few years. The Mets are still dealing with Starling Marte having some injuries, which, I mean, he's not the solution, but still, like they need to be healthy in order to be shoe-ins, I would think.
All right. Well, let's move from the MLB. Let's move on to the NFL. Let's talk about the New York Giants. Obviously, they're in market for a quarterback, whether that's in a draft and in recent developments, free agency. There was a story going around that the Giants were targeting my Matthew Stafford, which I don't like whatsoever.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I was really, first of all, I'm between a rock and a hard place when it comes to my Rams because Matthew Stafford was almost gone and Cooper Kupp, they're looking to shop him, but
he's gone.
Yeah. But they working it out. But with Matthew Stafford and the Rams, they're working out reconstructing his deal. Now, I was reading stories that Aaron Rodgers couldn't fill that veteran for that quarterback for him. Do you think that's a good move for the team and for Aaron Rodgers to go to the other New York team?
Yeah, I think overall this is like not a good move for either, but the Rodgers or the Giants. But they might not really have a choice. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, there's not really many destinations he can go. All the contenders right now have quarterbacks. They don't really need another quarterback. Maybe you'd get what's up?
I know one team.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think they're pretty set. I think they're pretty set. And plus, I mean, I will say I'm honored that you consider them a contender. So
I was talking about the Steelers, but also the Cardinals too.
Swear. Oh, that's funny. No, actually, just to pivot really quick, and I'll come back. Like, I actually think the best fit for Aaron Rodgers in the short term. This might be a hot take, but the Cleveland Browns. They have an immediate need at quarterback. I would think they have a really solid running game, and they could make some. If they were to get Rodgers, they could make some moves in the draft to draft a good receiver. I know McMillan from Arizona is available, and he's very good. He's easily a receiver one in the NFL.
Yeah.
And then you do have some of these other guys like Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins. We're not sure what's going to happen with them. Maybe you can allure them there. And I know Myles Garrett's on the shop, like he's going to be on the block. But I don't know. Maybe he decides for some reason, oh, we got Aaron Rodgers. Oh, like we might not be horrible. We could be a contender. I'm going to stay. And then you could get another edge rusher, maybe like Max Crosby, which that's a long shot. But all I'm saying is like there's not a lot of options for Aaron Rodgers. You know, if he were to go to a real contender, he'd probably be a backup at this point. And the Giants, like they're in a rebuild. So why they would do this, I don't know. Maybe you draft a quarterback, have him sit behind Rodgers, and maybe that will help that guy for his future. But I don't know. This is really not a good situation for either. Seems like they want a veteran in the locker room, though. And they do have Dable, who's offensively minded. So I would just say that it's not really a good move for either.
Did you just say if Aaron Rodgers go to a contender, he's going to be a backup?
Well, I'm talking about like, say, the Ravens or the Bills or a team that's like got an established quarterback one. You think he's going to take their starting?
You think he's going to sign her? He's not going to sign her.
Yeah, I think he would retire before that.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, that's the situation you're in. All the contenders have quarterbacks. There's not a contender out there that's like, the one thing we need is a quarterback, right? The Giants, I think they have a lot more issues than just quarterback. So I agree. I think he would retire too.
And then just imagine if you're Aaron Rodgers and you end your career in Cleveland.
If he could be the guy that finally wins Cleveland a championship, maybe that'd be worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're a quarterback away necessarily. But I think that the idea of him going to a team where he is like a bridge guy, usually that means the team's not very good. So like going to a place like the Giants where they're probably going to draft Cam Ward or maybe Shador, and then he plays for 1 year while Cam Ward or Shador sits and learns from him. I don't think he's signing up for a situation like that, especially to be on another bad football team. Like the Jets had high expectations, but they ended up being a bad football team. I don't think he wants to sign up to be on a bad football team.
Yeah.
So I think a place like the Vikings, he completes the Brett Favre cycle
that would be
of going from Green Bay to the Jets to Minnesota.
Wow.
I know that they have JJ McCarthy, but he's coming off an injury. He hasn't played any football in the NFL yet. I think that it might be beneficial for him to at least play maybe half the season. And maybe if Rodgers has the team to like a decent start, 5-0 start, something like that, they'll be like, all right, we're going to roll with Rodgers. And we got JJ McCarthy ready in the wings for next year. And maybe Rodgers is like, all right, the Vikings have a good defense, 2 great wide receivers, top 2 wide receiver in JJ. I think that maybe that's the situation that he would find more appealing.
Yeah.
But going to the Giants, I don't think that makes sense, like Teddy said, for either team. And I don't think he would want to be on a bad team. there is possibility. Maybe the Steelers.
Mm.
I don't want that to happen.
Mm.
I don't think that benefits us long term. I would much rather have Jay Fields back. But a team like that's kind of like middle of the pack, good weapons, good defense, and he can come in and like in his brain, he can make them a contender.
Yeah, those are the only two teams right now that are contenders, playoff teams that can use Aaron Rodgers' service.
Mhm.
But
True.
then if you're Vikings, you like Sam Darnold just had a good season under us. We're going to give him up to bring in Aaron Rodgers, who we not so sure about. And then the Steelers, do you want an older quarterback, knowing you got to get a younger quarterback at some point? So, I mean, yeah, it's tough for Aaron Rodgers. First of all, I don't agree with him going to the Giants whatsoever, just because I don't think Aaron Rodgers want that. And I kind of think that Giants fans don't want that either. I think the Giants are ready for
fresh
definitely a fresh start, a younger direction.
Yeah.
Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders should be their 1A, 1B right now as far as choices at quarterback. And I would agree with Aaron Rodgers going to the Giants if they were in that same space the Jets were, where they just a good quarterback away from turning the corner, or so we thought. But they're not in that situation. They're in a situation where they got to figure out offensive line. They still got to figure out some things on defense. I mean, they have a franchise at wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. Tyron Tracy was a good running back this year. He battled some injuries, but that's somebody that can rally around as far as being their featured back. They got to go in a youthful direction.
And I think Malik Neighbors kind of hits that he wants Shedeur. So I do know that there was a lot of New York Giants personnel at the Syracuse-Miami game. So I think that the Giants are definitely taking a hard look at Cam Ward as well. Personally, between the two, I would pick Shedeur. And I think that Shedeur kind of brings that hype back.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
A little bit more than Cam Ward would. But like you said, I think it's time for a fresh start.
Yeah, and plus you saw the success that Jaden Daniels had with the Commanders this past year. So when you see stuff like that, and the Commanders, they were 4-13 last year before having Jaden Daniels, and they went to the NFC Championship. So a team like the Giants, who are in a similar situation, they look at that and they're like, you know what? Maybe we do go get Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and maybe they have the same exact success. I don't see the Giants having the same success with Rodgers. I didn't even think about the Steelers, to be honest with you. I mean, honestly, they could bring back Rodgers and then have Fields sit behind him.
Fields is 25 now. I don't think he's still in the I'm going to wait and sit. Like he just did that with Russ this year.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
But I do feel like maybe another option, like the Saints, maybe. Like I know that they still have Derek Carr on the roster, but
well, I've heard they believe in Spencer Rattler.
Do they really?
Well, I mean, your opinion is your opinion, but I just tell you what I've heard.
I'd rather have Derek Carr than Spencer Rattler. We saw Spencer Rattler play.
Derek Carr.
Now, if they believe in Spencer Rattler for the future, then maybe you do bring in Aaron Rodgers and he sits and learns behind Aaron Rodgers. That does sound like a more ideal situation for the Saints than anybody, really.
Well, we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers. We'll see what happens with New York Giants as far as the quarterback situation. Last topic, last level. Let's bring the Knicks in back to the show.
Yep.
And here we go again. Every time something goes good for the Knicks, got to find the bad and you got to talk about it, spin it out of control. It's been worth noting that they have struggled against the top three teams in the NBA this year. They're 0-3 against the Celtics. They're 0-1 against the Cavs and the Thunder. They have 2 more games against the Cavs, which they can right the ship, and 1 more game against the Celtics. They have beaten everybody else that falls in that 4, 5, 6, top 10 range as far as teams. But with 2 of those teams that they haven't beaten being in the East, is this a bad sign that the Knicks might not be NBA Finals material?
I think so. I think that it's definitely not a good sign. I think that the Knicks right now are the 3 seed, so they would be slated to play the Pistons, who are currently the 6 seed in the playoffs. I think that they would sweep the Pistons. Pistons are having a really surprisingly good year.
I'm glad for them too.
No, yeah, I think that they're going to continue to evolve and get better year after year. But right now, it's their first good year in a long time. So I don't expect them to go into New York and win a playoff series or anything like that. But I do think that when you get to that second round, you got to play a Milwaukee or a Boston, depending on how it shakes out. or even like a Cleveland. I think a Cleveland New York series would be really interesting to see because Cleveland's one of the best teams in the league this year, but they haven't proven it in the postseason yet. So I don't know if they are able to or I'm able to say definitively that I think they would beat the Knicks because the Knicks have proven it somewhat in the playoffs. So I think that would be a really interesting series to watch. But I don't know if they can get past a Milwaukee or Boston. I don't think so right now on paper.
Not Milwaukee, with them being.
They have gone down a little bit. They got rid of Chris Middleton at the deadline, but Giannis is still Giannis. I'm taking him over the current Knicks roster just by himself. I think that the Knicks, if they lose to Cleveland or even maybe a Milwaukee team in the playoffs, they're gonna have a lot of question marks going into the offseason. And I think that they right now are not like a true finals contender.
What do you say about the Knicks?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they are a true finals contender if they can't get back past the Celtics, the Cavs, or the Thunder. In order to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I don't see them winning in a 7-game series against any of these teams. I'll be honest with you, I don't really even see them right now beating the Detroit Pistons in a 7-game series.
That's crazy.
The Detroit Pistons, I'm gonna tell you right now, like they still have a lot to figure out, but they are on a hot streak. They've won the last 8 games. They've won 10 out of the last 12. The Pistons don't have a lot of pressure on them going into the playoffs. They didn't have any expectations, while the Knicks do have all this expectation. They just brought in Cat and Mikal Bridges. They have high expectations. I agree that the Cavs don't have the playoff experience, but they are highly motivated. I mean, Donovan Mitchell is a man on a mission, and it seems like everything is coming together for the Cavs. I do believe that the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be Cavs Celtics. And plus the Knicks, they're beating all the teams that they should beat, the Hawks, the Bulls, the Raptors, the Sixers, but they're not beating them. Like they're in all these close games with them. They went to overtime, I believe, against the Hawks. And like a 3 overtime game or something like that. And so like when you have those kinds of games, like you should be beating these teams by double digits, really hammering them. That's not a brand of basketball that's going to carry to a NBA Finals appearance. Of course, they could beat all those teams in a best of 7 series, but those types of performances will not get you the win over the Celtics or the Cavs.
Well, I would say a lot of these teams have star players on their team. So I mean, like anybody can win at any night.
Yeah,
I would say that. But yeah, right now I don't buy the Knicks as NBA Finals contenders. But I did say that I think they can reach the Eastern Conference Finals. But the problem is, matchup wise, they can't hang with the Celtics. They can't hang with the Cavaliers. The problem is still there that they don't have good front court depth. It's Karl Anthony Towns, and then there's everybody else. And then they traded away Jericho Sims at the trade deadline. So, like, when they get to the playoff against those teams, and those teams got size on them, and then the Celtics are the defending champs, they just don't match up. I think they could beat. That was crazy that you said that the Pistons could beat them in the 7th.
I'm not saying they would beat the Knicks. I said they could beat the Knicks. They could. Okay. I think they could.
Would, could, should.
Yeah, I mean, if Jalen Brunson tears his ACL and Cat also tears his ACL, maybe then. But I mean, look, I think the Pistons are one of the best, like, surprising teams this year, I would say.
Yeah. The 2025 all season is definitely going to be the all season that's going to tell whether they can keep this going, because they have to strike now.
Well, and we thought that this past offseason was that. I mean, they made 2 huge moves, like Teddy said, getting Cat and Mikal Bridges. Like, that starting 5 is a very good starting 5. Yeah. So the fact that they aren't able to beat these good teams, as opposed to last year when they were beating these good teams with not those 2 guys and Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yes.
Yeah, like I just don't know. Maybe it's the cohesion still trying to figure that out.
I would say that. Yes.
But you got to figure it out soon because we're almost in the playoffs. So it's time to go. And I don't think. Like, I don't know what their next move would be.
I mean, I don't think they should panic.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, it takes a while. Look, the Celtics, it took them, 7 seasons in order for them to get over the hump? Not saying it's going to take the Knicks that long, but
still working on the Sixers to get over the hump.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. But it's going to be patient. I mean, like,
that's true.
Even when they signed Cat and Mikal Bridges, I was like, and you look at their depth at bench, it's still not there. I still am kind of worry about Tom Thibodeau as a coach when it gets to the back half of the season in the playoffs. Like, he's still known to run his players in the ground. I forgot one of y'all said that 4 of their players are in the top 5 or top 10 as far as like minutes on
Top
the
five.
floor.
Yeah.
Top
Yeah,
five.
that's a dangerous thing. And when you don't
That's
have
actually
any
an
depth,
insane stat.
yeah,
Yeah.
and when you don't have any depth, that can affect the team going forward
And-
versus the other teams that got depth.
And getting Mitchell Robinson back is not going to help them either because, again, he gives them a little bit more size, but he's coming back from a pretty gnarly injury. And again, we don't know his longevity. He might get injured again. So that's not going to.
And you also got to figure out how you can play him and Cat at the same time.
Yeah,
and maybe
exactly.
you got to split time or whatever the deal will be. You have to figure that out right now in like the final couple games of the season, final couple weeks of the season. So yeah, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be
Totally.
tough.
But I don't know. Like Cleveland's interesting to me. Like I know that they're like obviously have performed very well in the regular season, but we've seen a lot of teams have really good regular seasons and then lose early in the playoffs. So like I feel like a team like the New York Knicks would be really good.
That's why I say I still think Eastern Conference Finals, Celtics, Knicks series is very possible because you know when you get to the postseason, any sport comes down to situations, game within the game, and the Knicks have that player in Jalen Brunson who's going to bail you out in hard times.
Yep.
I don't know if the Cavaliers have that yet. The closest they have is Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
But we've seen Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs before. So
he's had his moments.
Yeah, he had his moments.
That
but,
series with him and Jamal Murray going 50 for 50 every game was
but
one of
there's
the
a
coolest
reason.
things ever.
There's a reason why he hasn't been out the second round yet.
No doubt.
So,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say that the Knicks have grit when it comes to the playoffs. They were dealing with a lot of injuries last year in that final series against the Pacers, but they hung around as much as they could with the depleted roster. Now, they're struggling now, but they're motivated in the playoffs. It's elimination basketball at that point. And yeah, we do hope that Tom Thibodeau doesn't run his guys into the ground, but they got playmakers that can then get things going. And Karl-Anthony Towns is a big addition too, because, you know, his playoff success hasn't been that great until last year where they were in the Western Conference Finals. So, you know, he's also motivated as well now that he is, I guess, in his mind, in a better situation with the Knicks.
All right, we're going to keep a lookout for the Knicks. This was episode 9 of the Empire State Sports Show with
Come on, Stacey, do it.
And Ted Caputo.
You just let Stacey know.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Follow us everywhere on social media, Instagram. Subscribe to here on YouTube. Boys Upstairs Show.
Sir.
Plug your show once again for the people.
Max Impact.
Max
First
Impact.
video podcast is out now.
Oh yeah. Check that out. We're gonna take a 2-week break. We got spring break coming up. We gonna have to, relax, recharge our batteries, but we'll be right back for episode 10.
Yeah.